You ready?
Okay, what are we doing again?
Rentals.
Rent? Okay, I don't know what we're doing.
Hello, everybody. Stop it.
Sorry.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about the 7 most important things to look for when you're buying a rental property.
Ooh, I like that.
You like that?
I like that.
Okay, good. I hope so. I'm glad you like it because that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll go through these 7 things. We'll sort of talk about them. I'll read, and then Juana, you can discuss some of the things. Okay, so the first one is the location, and I'll give with a summary of what it said. The property's location is critical as it affects rental demand, rental income, and the property's long-term value. Look for properties in areas with low vacancy rates, growing population, strong job markets, and amenities like schools, parks, and shopping centers. Why are different parts of either the country, different parts of town different? And then also talk about these, like BlackRock, who has this massive army of analysts who literally scour data to say, we want to go and buy in like this one zip code in Georgia because this is the magic zip code, right?
Okay, so BlackRock has all these, you call them analysts, I call them ants, and
they're like in their 20s, they just graduated from college, and literally their job is...
My turn.
Oh, it's your turn.
BlackRock, they have ants. He calls them analysts. And you know how ants have scouting guys that go out and scout? That's what these guys do. They basically go out and they scout all these markets, and they figure out what markets fit the matrix, the matrix that BlackRock is looking for. And BlackRock is looking for basically a number of things. They're looking for markets that have a lot of upside potential as far as growth and appreciation, as far as rent, where jobs are going, where they're relatively young because that allows for more growth. So they've got all these things that they're looking for, and those are the markets that they're looking for. Now, as far as rentals, look, it's real estate, so it's location, 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 right? Mm-hmm. We had a chat this weekend with, or a couple weekends back, whenever that was, with House Hacker, and we were talking about that. We were talking about zip codes, and we were discussing with him that you need to pick out an area that makes sense for you. So it makes sense as far as appreciation, as far as vacancy rates, as far as the price that you're purchasing the house at, as far as how quickly you're going to be able to rent that property out, and for how much you're going to rent it out. So let's say, for example, that you're going to buy a house for $350,000 and you're going to get $2,000 a month in rent. You know, that makes sense, right? But let's say that you're spending $350,000 and you're maybe getting $1,200 in rent. Not so much, right? So you have to take a look at all these things. But location is super important.
Okay. If I were at BlackRock, what I would do is I would keep the analysts, but I would arm them with AI, machine learning, super intelligence to go find the selected properties.
I'll bet they have that.
I don't know if they have that yet. This is happening pretty fast, and BlackRock is still, I don't think BlackRock is that advanced.
I think they are.
I think there's some tech company out there. I think there's a couple guys that probably went to Stanford and MIT that are trying to figure stuff like this out. But usually this stuff just like hits, and then they go to somebody and say, hey, we figured out a way to, and then remember, BlackRock has all the data. So they partner with them, BlackRock gets the data. Anyway, that I would use. I think that's a perfect thing for AI, crunching data and littering, saying, like it would even scour the MLS, or you scrape Zillow and say, buy this house. Like this house is, based on, you can even read the description and go, oh my gosh, it doesn't even need repairs. So let's go through the rest of the video.
Okay.
I just thought that was interesting. Okay. Rental income potential.
Right.
Look for properties that have a good potential for rental income. You can evaluate rental income potential by comparing similar properties in the same area, considering the average rental rates. Why do you care about how much rent you're going to get?
Well, you care how much rent you're going to get because you have to get a decent return on your investment. So how much money you're putting out, could you use that money in other ways and make more money versus the rent money? Because rentals are a lot more complicated than a regular investment, because rentals actually pay you twice, right? They pay you once when you collect the rent, and then they pay you the second time through appreciation.
Okay. The third thing is property condition. Property's physical condition will determine the amount of work needed and the cost of repairs or renovation. Be sure to inspect the property thoroughly and get professional valuations to avoid hidden surprises. We have worked with investors who have literally bought perfect house. Like the house is gorgeous, and all we had to do was drop the tenant in, and we've worked with them where they are like, we need 2 months for like rehab, right?
Right. So it all depends on, of course, your purchase price, your goals, and what you're trying to do with the property. But it all also plays into the whole situation of where you are, right? So are you local? Are you able to source vendors yourself? Are you able to manage the project yourself? Or are you, are you remote? Are you somewhere else? And are you having to pay somebody to do all these things? Because, of course, that plays into the whole return on your investment. So it is important to figure out what your situation is and make appropriate choices.
Also, if the property is trashed, it's harder to get a tenant for a decent amount.
Okay, so if the property is trashed, you're going to have to make it nice. And you're going to have to make it nice for two reasons. One, so that you can get a better tenant. So notice I emphasize getting a better tenant rather than getting more rent. Okay, getting a better tenant is in your long-term interest because a better tenant is also going to pay you on time, going to hopefully pay you more rent, and is going to be more stable. And you want somebody like that. You also want somebody who's going to take care of your property, who's not going to leave it in worse condition than you turned over the property to them. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of keeping all your properties nice so that your tenants will keep them nice. It makes it easier to rent your property. It makes it easier for you to sell the property if you need to, even with your tenant in there.
Okay, property types. Different types of properties, single family, multifamily, apartments, etc. This would include condos, have different advantages and disadvantages. Determine what type of property fits your investment goals and aligns with your budget. So apartments and multifamily generally do not appeal to owner occupants because you can't really buy an apartment and live there, right? But single family, you pay a premium. Why do you pay a premium for a single family over a multifamily?
Well, land to start with, because remember, a multifamily is generally vertical, or maybe they're attached in some way, so they're actually using less land for multiple dwellings, as opposed to single family, which generally it uses more land, and land is expensive.
Okay, all right, I'll go with that. Personally, I prefer single family. Condos tend to have, and all these other ones. Now, multifamily can work, right? Because you can buy a 4-unit or something,
right?
But you can rent all the units out and stuff.
Right. I mean, look, it all depends on the opportunity, right? If you have a great opportunity with whatever class of real estate it is, then figure out if that's good for you and go for it.
Depending on where you are, though, remember, multifamily properties will tend to be older because they're not popular. Like there are not a lot of builders building fourplexes. Okay, so if you have a fourplex, if you look in Vegas, you can find fourplexes. I think you probably get one for $400,000 or $500,000. They're actually pretty expensive. We were buying these things for $50,000 or something back in the day, like $60,000. They were pretty cheap, but they're $500,000 and they're very few in the MLS. But when you look at the date on them, like the new ones are built in 75 or something. Right.
And the thing that I found with them in Vegas, that's not all markets, but in Vegas, there's not a good return on investment on them. The rents tend to be lower. They don't appreciate as much. They require a lot more work for renovations because, like Todd said, they're older. They don't tend to be in neighborhoods that appreciate well. So that whole combination makes me shy away from them. I prefer single-family homes. I will entertain townhouses. Or condos, depending on the neighborhood. But townhouses and condos, I'm not particularly fond of usually because the HOAs are high.
Actually, not that long ago, I was under contract on a fourplex that was super nice, beautiful. It was very new. It was super nice, and didn't end up closing on it, but. You can find them, but like I said, one has those concerns. I think single-family homes are the way to go.
Right.
The other advantage too is you can always sell them to an owner-occupant.
Right.
You can flip it to another investor at some point in the future, or you can sell it to an owner-occupant. Okay, 5, property management. Determine how you will manage the property, either by yourself or through a property management company. Property management affects your cash flow and the level of involvement required from you as an investor. So 2 things about that, Juana. Why does it affect cash flow?
So because property managers, we work for money. We don't work for your pretty brown, blue, green eyes. We work for money. So it does affect your cash flow. And a lot of times people, even if they live locally, they will have a property manager because they simply do not want to deal with the tenants. They don't want to deal with, those calls on, Saturday night at 11:30 at night that something's happened and somebody needs to attend to it. They simply don't want to deal with that. They want to have lives. They want to enjoy their lives. And remember, this is an investment. So as all investments, it needs to care for itself. And that means that you hire somebody to manage your investment.
Okay. And then also in some areas, they're required to have a physical property manager within a certain distance. There's these companies out there, startups, that give you a digital virtual property manager. So you never know, right? Are they even in compliance with local rules if technically all their people are remote, maybe even overseas, and you're just communicating through an app or something? But you're supposed to have somebody, like I think in Clark County, I think you have to have somebody with an actual human within 50 miles of the property, or else you can't manage it. You can't be sitting in California and just having them mail you checks. Technically, that they don't allow that, right?
Right.
Okay, number 6, financing options. Evaluate your financing options. Select one that provides the best return on investment. Compare interest rates, loan terms, and other financing options. So VA and FHA are not financing options for rentals. Why?
Because they are for owner occupants. They are designed, in the case of FHA, they are designed for people who don't have a lot of down payment and they need a home to live in. So that's that portion. And then VA loans are designed for veterans to help them out. They've got zero down, they've got favorable interest rates, they've got all kinds of protections as far as appraisal and not losing their earnest money. So again, they're designed to protect veterans. But there are plenty of loan products out there for investors. You can, after living in a VA financed house or living in an FHA house for a certain amount of time, you can turn them into a rental, but initially they have to be owner occupied.
And there's also you could petition the bank and say, hey, look, here's the deal. We bought this house and then, my spouse got a transfer and we can't stay in the house, but we don't.
So like, for example,
hardship.
So example, in the case of VA, so let's say that you purchased a primary residence with a VA loan, and 6 months down the road you got deployed, and your spouse, needs extra help with the kids, so moved somewhere to be closer to family, so you had to rent out the house. That would be a hardship, and you'd have to write him a letter and explain that, and then you would rent out the house.
Okay, 7, most important one: overall financial analysis. Run a thorough financial analysis, determine the property fits your investment goals, evaluate cash flow, potential returns, taxes, and other expenses to ensure the property is a good investment. Now, we don't know. Nobody knows exactly what this thing will be worth, what rents will be in 5 years. You don't really know, but sometimes you're just trying to either you understand the market or you get somebody that understands the market to help you with this.
Right. So I call it putting pencil to paper, right? Do columns, do a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. Put pencil to paper and figure out what makes sense. At what price point does this property make sense for you? Purchase price, any repairs, rent, any other costs, throughout the year for the property, maybe HOA dues, property taxes, insurance, all these things. Figure all that in and then say, hey, does this make sense for me? Does it meet my financial goals? Everybody's different, so I can't give somebody particular advice. I've been asked that, and I can't exactly give you advice, but I can kind of sort of guide you in that direction. So that's really important. Look, do your homework. Begin with the end in mind. If this was easy, everybody could do it. It isn't that easy, and that's why you guys are able to do it and not other people, right? That's why not everybody's a landlord.
And the other thing too is you have to be patient with this. Owning rental property is something that takes a long time, and it certainly is. I mean, Warren Buffett once said, about 15 years ago, if I could write a check and buy 200,000 houses in the U.S., I would do it right now. But there's no way to do that because he felt housing was a huge opportunity, and he's pretty famous for being able to spot opportunities. So, but you have to it takes you a long time to build wealth. And real estate is almost a guaranteed way to build wealth because, yes, Tesla stock has done very well the last 3 or 4 years, but, anything can happen and it could go away. But if you own a bunch of rental properties, chances are you're going to collect rent every month. They're going to go up in value, maybe not in a year, but maybe in 5 or 10, almost for sure. And there's other advantages.
Okay, and I'm going to give you guys, can I say the last word on this?
You can always add the last word.
Okay, so the last word on this is have a guiding principle. So my guiding principle on rentals is this. I would not buy a rental if it was not one that I would personally live in. And the reason I say that is because that will impact the neighborhood that I purchase, the type of home that I purchase, and if it's desirable to me, it'll be desirable to someone else. That's really simple. We had somebody leave a comment not that long ago and said, hey, I had this multifamily in a city back east, and I bought it, and it was nothing but trouble, and I ended up selling it after a few years at a loss, and then a couple years later, I learned that it burnt down, and so there was all these bad things, and I'm very sorry for that person. And that's why my position is that if you would not personally live in the property, if it's in a sketchy part of town, then find something that you would live in. And for a couple of reasons. One, because like I said, if you find it desirable, somebody else will. And the other thing is your financial fortunes may change and you may need to live in that property.
Yep.
So pick a property that you would like to live in. So it doesn't mean that it's going to be a multi-million-dollar property, okay? But it does mean that it's going to be in a decent part of town, where you're comfortable, going out to the mailbox and not fearing for your life. Where neighbors are decent and look after each other. Pick something that you feel is a good place to live, and somebody else will also find it a good place to live, which means you'll have an easy time finding a tenant, and you'll also have a better time finding a buyer when eventually you will sell the property, because all properties eventually get sold.
And this is not tax advice, but I have heard of people who will, when their tenant moves out, they will move back in the house for a period of time so that it converts from tax purposes back to being a primary residence. Mm-hmm. So when they sell it, that there is this tax deduction or this
so you don't have to pay taxes on the profit.
They don't have to pay taxes on the profit. There's this 250, 500 rule. Anyway, you can Google it, you can chat GPT it, or you can talk to an accountant, which is what I recommend, and say, hey, what happens if this, if that? Actually, there's somebody on the channel who did write that. They put that they had a property that when the tenant moved out, they moved back in, and they were going to do that to the property they were living in, and then one more rental. And then once they did that, they were going to sell the property, either go sell it and just keep the money and have all the profit from the appreciation and not pay taxes on it.
So interesting stuff. Hope you liked it. We appreciate you watching. If you like us and you like the video, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, leave us comments. And if you love us, then you're welcome to tip us. We are not offended by tips. Yeah. Have a good day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.